All right, now let's go ahead and implement this the repositories part, which is pretty important to do any stuff with your entities itself. Let's create this folder itself, which we can call here repositories, and let's do that. And in here we'll have the same stuff what we had in the core, and here we also follow the same structure. And in this case, what we are going to call this, we are going to implement this iRepository, which is we are going to call this as a repository itself. And yeah, so that's the classic version, which means like that's the generic version here. And let's call this of t, and let's implement this of iRepository itself, and of t, and where t being that let's have that something like where t being your entity itself. So this can be substituted. Let's say you have movie, you have movie review, you have any other repository. Let's say let's say you are coming up with this ticketing event also. So in that case, this t can be substituted with that, and whatever methods are lying inside this iRepository, which you can see here, like these methods can be then implemented for that particular entity itself, right? So that's the idea behind this. Let's implement all these missing members. Let's have one. Yeah, let's create the constructor itself, and let's inject the movie context over here. And what is we are going to need is movie context, and that's the piece which we are going to have here. Okay, so let's go ahead and create the read only field here, and that's the thing which we are going to need here. Right now let's go ahead and implement this. So the very first thing which we have is get all async, which means like we can simply return and wait for that movie context, and that is going to first of all we need to set this t what is going to that, and then we can just simply tool list async probably should do the job here. And let's say why this is complaining, and this is okay, we need to mark this as an async. So that's it. Now this is completed. Now let's complete the other one, and let's start with async itself. And of course we need to you know this is get by id, so we need to do the same thing here, but this time we are going to have this with the id itself. And let's have movie context dot set of t, and let's say this is going to find a sync, and let's apply this id over here. So that's the thing which it is fine here. Now let's go ahead and implement the other one, which is the add async, right? And in case of add async, we are going to have something like first of all this add needs to be added for this movie context itself. And why this is complaining, okay, let's start with async itself, and let's await for that. And let's say movie context here, and then we are going to of course set this to t, which is movie here, and then we are going to call this add async, and here we are going to supply this entity, which is nothing but what we are getting as the param, which is movie here. And then we are going to save changes here, right? And this is movie context dot save changes, because now it has the context of movie itself. So that's what this save changes is applied, and then we can simply return this entity. So that's also done. Now what we need to do here is next is update async, and then comes the delete async. So let's go ahead and mark this async first of all, and let's have this movie context dot entry. Here we need to check for the entry, and for that we need to check the state of that. So if I just take this entity, and for that I can check for that whether it's modified or not. So we are setting this to modified, and because that's the thing, right? And then We are basically going to call this thing, right, movie context save changes basically. So and let's do this save change. That means whatever data is coming up with this entity is now modified this state, and now we have updated that data itself. Now let's go ahead and do the same for delete, and let's complete this as well. And here we are going to just need that for that entity, and let's set this first of all and remove that entity as is, right? So that's what I'm just going to have here. And once that is done, what we can do here is we just need to save this, right? So movie context dot save changes async, right? So that's done. So now that's pretty much done. So now in the next piece, what we are going to do is we are going to implement the custom one, which is nothing but the movie repository.